Hauschka is Volker Bertelmann, a visionary of the prepared piano. Hauschka renews interest in the distinctive art of modifying the piano into a symphony of haphazard sound. You're tuned into Roots to Grooves.
classically dramatic intro to this week's edition of Roots to Grooves. With me, Jay.
And I'm Jesse. And when we're sitting across from each other and the cameras are on and the thing is recording, that makes this Roots to Grooves.
Yeah. Hopefully everything's recording. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we have checked that? Should we have started the cameras? I don't know. Who's on that? Where's our camera guy?
I don't know, but for one of our episodes, we were stoned. It was like the camera was that way. It was out of focus. I was wearing sunglasses. You were wearing sunglasses.
We smoke a few blunts before we start recording.
On that episode, it looked like there was smoke wafting across the screen. But, you know.
We hotbox this BZ.
If you're not on the video, get on the video. YouTube.com/SIGNL.
You can see our beautiful faces.
Yeah. And but if you're not, it's cool. You can just listen to us. We're all down for that as well.
Yeah, I heard somebody said it's listening to our podcast is really nice to go to sleep to. It'll put you right to sleep.
Did someone tell you that?
I think somebody said that, so I take it as a compliment.
That's the first feedback I've heard.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of feedback. Give us some feedback. We're looking for some hate mail.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody.
Yeah.
It's Roots to Grooves. We're talking about Hauschka.
Yeah. This is an episode, by the way, if you're newly joining us, we talk about a new artist, a new band, a new musical group every week, talking about everything from their earliest beginnings, their career, their albums, their discography sometimes, their mindset, their approach to making music.
Yeah.
And our reaction and our thoughts about that as we discover stories and share them with you. So,
yeah, we're here to learn and we're here to grow.
Yeah.
Which is pretty exciting.
And this week we are talking about German pianist and composer who goes by the name of Hauschka.
So this guy's amazing. I don't know who this guy was, but this is a J pick.
Yeah, his real name is Volker Bertelmann, by the way.
Bertelmann from Purcell, Germany.
Yeah. And I feel like this might be another actress type episode.
Oh, yeah?
Just because... Hauschka is probably more traditionally musical than actresses. Mm-hmm. If people don't know, rewind to our episode on actress. He is an electronic music composer who has started more recently in the last few years to introduce AI and computer programming and algorithms to create his music. Hauschka is a classically trained pianist. But he does this unique approach to playing piano, which is called prepared piano. Do you know what prepared piano is, Jesse?
I did not until researching for this week's episode.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe we've all heard of different stories of different artists playing their instrument in a little bit of a different way. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, I can't even think of the name, but like I know somebody's used like a violin string on an electric guitar, doing things like that, getting creative with it. And this guy kind of took that to the very next level. Yeah. Not the very next level, but like a few levels down. So yeah, I had no idea what this was exactly, but I was looking up videos and reading about what he was doing. So this guy has a piano, and we all know the piano has strings in there. It's technically a percussive instrument.
Yeah, the strings and the hammers creating the sound on the strings.
So, yeah, there's mechanics going on under there. That's why the piano's so big.
Yeah.
It's a mechanical thing. And so, the mallets hit the strings and then it makes the sound, just like a stringed instrument, basically. But this guy took it next level and he's putting ping pong balls all over the piano strings.
Different objects between the strings.
We're talking like feathers.
Yeah.
I saw pictures of a box of Tic Tacs.
Yeah.
Anything and everything. And he's experimented with this and he has different organizations for different tracks and different sounds. He's tying strings to things and they're little metal or coins.
Yeah.
And then he plays music with them.
Yeah.
And he allows these things to, like kind of on the spot, inspire him to hit different keys and create this music.
Yeah.
So instead of having a structured song where I'm going to play this, I'm going to play that, he's kind of playing this and he's like, I want a little bit more of a rattle. So I'm going to hit these strings up here where the ping pong balls are. And then, things are falling over here. I'm going to go over here and play something over here on this hand.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm not explaining this like the best way anybody's ever explained it, but I just fell into this. And he's basically making a lot of a noise.
Yeah, we'll get into it much more as the episode progresses. But yeah, I mean, that's basically a good sort of overview of
Just
what he's doing on
Getting
the piano.
really creative with the piano strings,
Yeah.
and making different noises, and yeah.
And I guess like musically, as we always like to start out describing an artist and their sound, I would say maybe modern classical. Like there's a lot of classical things happening here in his sound. There are no other instruments for the most part in his music. You will hear occasionally some strings, other stringed instruments. On one album he did, which we'll talk about a little bit later, maybe is like some synthy bass drum sounds that have been added in there, kind of thing. But for the most part, he's just on the piano, and he's creating this new sort of sonic world kind of thing. And he's very prolific, because we won't really, like, some artists were able to sort of kind of go album by album, but this guy's had like 19 releases out since 2004, albums and EPs, but mostly albums. He's also done 16 film soundtracks, so he's like veered into that world, as you may expect or may not, I don't know, from a classical composer to be going into the film soundtrack world sort of thing. But yeah, this guy's really good, and I first discovered him, I think, randomly on Spotify, from his album Ferndorf, which I think came out in 2008, and we opened up with a track from that. There's another favorite track I have for that I'll play a little bit later on, kind of thing.
And Ferndorf is the village that he grew up in.
There you go.
Fun fact.
Yeah. And I also got the chance to see him perform live in Seattle.
Oh, nice.
I think 2019 at the Moore Theatre.
Amazing.
Which is first time I'd ever been to the Moore Theatre. And for people that aren't in Seattle, it's kind of this old theatre, all seating. It's very old looking, and it kind of fit his music well. And he was just on stage by himself, and he had his piano, and he had a harmonium and a few other like trinkets that he was doing things on, kind of thing.
But he was up there by himself?
Just up there by himself, yeah. No opening act, just there doing that thing. And it was really good, yeah. It's just that track we opened with, it was kind of that vibe all night. He didn't play a long set, maybe like 40 minutes ish.
Oh, it's relatively short, even.
An hour, maybe, something, yeah. No encore. It's not really like the encore. I think actually he might have done an encore. Actually, he might have like just hopped off the stage and then come back and then did.
Okay.
Either
way,
sort of thing. But yeah.
That would be a beautiful venue to see that beautiful music.
Yeah. So that's kind of his sound. And should we talk a little bit about his beginnings? His forays into music. And,
so I mean, he's been into music from pretty early on, basically.
Yeah.
Classically trained, like you said. He was born in Purcell, Germany, grew up in the village of Ferndorf.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, I'm getting into the geography. I'm looking at it. The district of Signl, Wittgenstein, North Rhine-Westphalia.
I think it's about, if Düsseldorf is like the next biggest city that some people might have heard of, and I think they're about an hour away from Düsseldorf.
These are like little suburbs on the outside of this big Düsseldorf city.
Yeah.
Düsseldorf.
Yeah.
What a fun city name.
Yeah.
So he was the fifth of 6 children.
Yeah.
We got kind of a big family.
Yeah.
And he started playing piano at as early as 9. I think it's when he discovered it.
Yeah.
And
he was so like the village he comes from is very sort of Christian, heavily Christian, he said.
Right.
They have a church there. And his first experience of hearing music was a pianist in the church, but he was playing Chopin, this guy, kind of thing. And I think at the age of like, 9 years old, he said to his mum, like, "Oh, I really want to do that. Can you get me lessons or something?"
From that guy, Chopin.
From the guy that was playing Chopin.
And he's like, he's the famous composer, Chopin, right?
Yeah, it wasn't actually Chopin. Chopin had been dead.
Oh, but he was playing Chopin?
He was playing Chopin.
Oh.
It wasn't Chopin.
Okay, because I was like, no way.
Let's look at when Chopin passed away.
Okay.
Chopin.
Yeah, chopping.
Is that how you...
chopping up those keys since the 1840s.
This is a question for the audience. How do you spell Chopin? Chopin?
I thought it was I-N.
He's a Polish composer, classical composer, who was born in 1810 and passed away in Paris in 1849. So, yeah. Hauschka is 55 years old, but he's not old enough to have seen Chopin play live.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what I thought I heard. Anyway.
But this pianist
take it back.
Was playing Chopin. Hauschka, or we could call him by his real name, Volker, was 9 years old. He said to his mum, I want to learn how to play. And he wanted to learn how to play from that guy that he saw playing in the village. But he says his family was kind of poor. They couldn't afford to like buy an actual piano.
Yeah, they didn't have one.
Eventually his grandmother gifted a piano for him to learn on. And then he got lessons from this guy. And he ended up taking lessons for like 10 years with this guy, learning all of the traditional classical compositions you can think of from like Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, all that sort of stuff. And so his early years was learning how to play all that stuff and then performing all of those traditional classical pieces kind of thing. And
I think that's exactly right. Tell me if I'm wrong, but he also started a band when he was 12.
Yeah.
And that's when he was kind of exploring this other side of music, which was like rock.
Yeah, so it seemed like he had two sides to him, because when he was 12 years old, he said he had a Moog synthesizer, one of the early ones, and a big Leslie speaker. I don't know if you know about the Leslie speakers.
Yeah, where it's like spinning.
Yeah, so like if you have a Hammond, I think it's usually used with a Hammond organ, and it's like this big wooden cabinet. It looks like a closet or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's got this big whirling speaker in it that creates sounds. He used to hook up his Moog to that, and he used to play. There was this crazy movie. It wasn't actually. It was War of the Worlds, which was a thing that started as it was an Orson Welles radio show. Is where that story came from. I think they didn't actually make a movie until way later.
Right. Well, it was originally a book. Is that right?
No, I think it started as it might have been a book, and then they might have adapted it for the radio thing.
Yeah.
And it's all about like aliens invading Earth. And when Orson Welles Orson Welles' first big thing was this radio play, War of the Worlds. And they freaked people out because they did it so well on the radio that people were calling up the radio station and the local government things, and they were like freaked out that there was an actual alien invasion happening. But in the 70s, without a movie being made, they made this album called War of the Worlds, which is like this. And my dad had a copy of it. I used to listen to it growing up as well.
Based on the radio show? Or it has anything to do with it?
No, just based on the story.
Okay.
But not on the radio show, yeah. And the album was like a lot of this synthy, weird, creepy compositions mixed in with like voiceover type things. It was very creepy. I remember it being very creepy to listen to when I was growing up.
Inspired by the story of H.G. Wells?
Yeah. And so Hauschka, Volker, used to put that vinyl record on and play along on his Moog and this big Leslie speaker in this German village. All of this is sounding very like horror movie-ish kind of thing to me a little bit.
The beginning of a horror film in Germany.
In the 70s or whatever, yeah. And but I used to listen to that album. I liked it for some reason, but it also creeped me the hell out, and it still creeps me the hell out.
I didn't know that existed. I'll have to check it out. Yeah. I like the movie, I like the idea, I like the story.
Well, the album cover of that original one was like it was a painted like illustration, but it was like these like creepy alien like space machines with big metal legs, and then like people in the foreground. It was a very scary cover kind of thing. And but that's where Hauschka got his start, playing like doing classical, but then also with his Moog.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense, because since he got into soundtracks and stuff, he had this early experience of kind of exploring that and experiencing it. So kind of cool. I saw he was playing Rolling Stones.
Yeah, he used to play Rolling Stones covers in a band he was in. I think so. Like in his village area that he was in, there was like one rehearsal music room, and because some other people that were playing music found out he had a Moog, they invited him to join the band. And so they were just playing, like Rolling Stones covers. And he said it was the place to hang out because it was a small village, there was nothing to do. And all of the teenagers used to go to this like rehearsal room. So they'd be playing and then there'd be...
good times.
Yeah, he went from there. And then I think he was just kind of... He said like sort of coasting after that. Didn't really have much going on. I think he went to Dusseldorf. I'm not really sure if he was living in Dusseldorf or too much about his studying or anything like that.
But he was continuing to learn piano. He was still
continuing the whole time, yeah.
So that was kind of the one consistent thing, because he didn't get signed until he was to a label until he was 24.
Yeah, and what happened with that, he said he was in a bar in Dusseldorf and he came outside and he saw this guy standing on the street and he was like, that looks like my cousin. And he went to talk to this guy and was like, yeah, I am your cousin. It's like he hadn't seen this guy for years.
Yeah.
This guy lived in Richmond, Virginia in America.
That was just a random coincidence?
Yeah, and it was...
they meant to meet up there?
No, that was a random coincidence. Yeah, that his cousin had just happened to be in Dusseldorf at that time as he stumbled out of a bar.
Okay.
And I guess they ended up...
I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. I guess they ended up just hanging out that night, and that night they decided to form a band together. They bonded over, he said, Seattle music sounds. Yeah. Nirvana,
nice.
Rock, grunge,
stuff. Pearl
yeah.
Jam.
Stage diving, all that sort of stuff. They bonded over that. So when I looked up, they came up with a name, God's Favorite Dog. And he was talking about all of this stuff. He also said, hip hop, but it's like, okay. And I looked them up. I can only find one super cheesy YouTube video, which I'm going to play a little clip for you for.
Nice.
So I thought that God's Favorite Dog was going to be some kind of grunge, in the vein of Nirvana type thing. Mm-hmm. But no, apparently they're a hip hop duo.
Right, yeah. Which it kind of feels like it's out of left field.
Yeah. And he said that they were doing shows. No, they did their first gig at a festival in Dusseldorf, and someone in the audience saw them, and they got signed to Sony record label off the back of the first gig.
That's one thing I keep seeing in these shows that we talk about these artists.
Yeah.
A lot of them get signed by being noticed from playing live, not particularly from releasing music.
Apart from Unknown Mortal Orchestra that we just talked about, who
was the opposite.
Basically got signed from a Bandcamp release. Right. But yeah, shows, yeah. And also this was like, I think we're talking like late 80s, like different time period, 90s. But I want to play this because it's super cheesy, and if you're on the video, check this out.
Nice.
Hopefully there's not going to be an ad. If there is, I'll mute it, but here we go.
Ja, ganz einfach. God's Favorite Dogs, eine junge Band aus Düsseldorf mit ihrem Titel Lake of Life.
Is that him on guitar?
Keys.
Oh, he's on keys?
I'm just going to play the rap a little bit.
In the lake of life with sunshine on my face. I say dipping my toes in the lake of life. I got new hope for the human race. I say dipping my toes in the lake of life refreshes all my senses. I say dipping my toes in the lake of life. I break down all my fences.
Wow, dipping his toes in the lake of life. He's got a whole new release.
They were dipping
race.
their toes into some.
That was possibly, he might find that super proud or super embarrassing. I don't know. The ravages of time or something like that.
It sounds like they were in the right spot for the right time.
Yeah.
And like you said, that was
in
some old school
1993. That was, but
that's some quintessential early rap hip hop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
pop hip hop.
Hip hop. What did I say?
No, yeah, no.
Oh, I don't
whatever
know.
you said was fine, but I'm just additioning to it.
But I mean, yeah, that's awesome to see these two extremes from this hip hop group to the stuff we opened up the show with that we're truly talking about.
Yeah. Well, so he because he did that group for like a while. I think they did like an album. They had some singles. They were signed to Sony, and but then it sort of just fell apart. The label wasn't pushing it, and that project came to an end. But I think through that and through doing that, he did end up like producing, like, or take on the role of like a producer for different artists, kind of thing. And so fast forwarding a few years to 2006, this is kind of a pivotal moment. He was in Wales in United Kingdom, and he was at a studio producing an album for a group called Music AM. And interesting thing, they called themselves Music AM because they decided they were only going to make music in the morning.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw them talking about that, and that's a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Why did they want to choose that? Because I do understand, like as they were saying the same thing, like the feeling and the vibe is different when you're making the music in the morning as opposed to at night.
Yeah. I think that was just the basic concept there behind the thing was what it would be like to just only make music in the morning. And they said they started at 6 a.m. and finished at 9 a.m. every day. And that was it. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I'll play you a little bit from that album because it's kind of interesting. There's a little snippet from Music AM.
Castle Rock is gonna get you high. 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 Castle Rock is gonna get you high.
It's just a little snippet of Music AM. I listened to it. I skimmed that album a little bit. I believe that's the one that Hauschka worked on, Volker.
I mean, was he a member of that group, or was he just serving as producer?
Producer, and I think he plays some keys on it and stuff like that. But yeah, he wasn't really. Well, I'm not actually sure. I don't want to say for sure. I don't know. I don't think he was. It might have just been like a project, Music AM, like where they all sort of got together and thought we're going to do this thing.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And but I don't think it really took off. There's only like 2 albums on Spotify. I don't know if they're doing anything anymore or whatever. But it's an interesting concept to do that. It's it sounds a little bit dated now. That album. There's parts of it that are good, but it feels. I mean, of that time, early 2000s, which we're already dating ourselves. I didn't think 2000s things was a thing, but now it's a thing. Like it sounds old. Some of that stuff from the early 2000s. It's crazy. It is like 21 years ago. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I mean, he's exploring, so.
Yeah, and I think it was like, so he had done a few things in that period, and it was when he was out in Wales making this project that he discovered the prepared piano thing. Because basically he said he would, because these sessions, the guys were doing it from 6 to 9 a.m. He would actually like wake up earlier than 6, like before everyone else, and they'd be down in the studio and they'd be on the piano just like noodling and playing around with a few things. And that's when he got the idea. It was like, oh, I should do a piano album, like because that had been his thing actually, like originally, as a classical musician.
It would make a lot of sense.
And he'd done all this like sort of pop producing hip hop stuff in the meantime, and he, was always gravitating back to the piano, I think, and he discovered this way just by accident. He said like he had this like packing box on the floor with like styrofoam pieces lying around, and he decided to put one of them through between a couple of strings, and he was like playing the keys, and it was like, he was like, that sounds like a hi-hat or something. And then he was like, but I can't keep holding this there because that's kind of awkward sort of thing. So he like started taping them to the strings and stuff like that, and that's when he discovered like you could create all these new crazy sounds from a piano just by like putting things in the strings and creating these weird percussive textures and stuff like that. And so it led him to like pursue that and create his first album called Substantial. But he said though that for this album there's only like a few tracks that had that technique on it, and the rest of it was sort of kind of straight kind of classical piano, but new compositions he'd come up with, kind of thing.
So he was still, just hitting his stride as a piano player, but and using this kind of creative technique as a supplement. But not fully, and as we'll see.
And I think also it was like he talked a lot about, he said that he had some insecurities around his playing. Like he didn't think he was a virtuoso or like a great pianist sort of thing. And I think that was like partly why he started fucking with the strings to like see what else he could do with it sort of thing. He got through those insecurities enough to like do this album and put it out, kind of thing. And he's since said that, he realizes that everyone has those insecurities when you're starting out about anything, kind of thing, and you have to push through it. He didn't really speak about how he got pushed through it or what, if there was anything pivotal that made him push through it, but could have just been purely his desire to, do something like
different and creative
that was not what he was involved with, like to that point musically, kind of thing. Like,
Real quick, while we're on this first album, we should talk about how he got his name Hauschka.
Let's do it.
Because I guess he was looking for a name that sounded Eastern European. Just for the aesthetic, as far as the impression that I got. He just wanted it to sound like it was a kind of foreign. Am I on the right track? Because that's all I know basically. But he based it off another composer called Vincenz. Vincenz Hauschka. And he's a bohemian composer. From back in the day, I think. I didn't look too much deeper than that. But he took his last name as the name for his project.
Just for seeking that sound in the name, even not just his music, but like the texture of the name of the sound of the artist.
So I don't know if you have anything on that, but that's basically all I got from him. And since we're on that first album,
I didn't look at Vincent Hauschka, unfortunately, because I don't think they even have a Wikipedia page. Just an obscure composer that's like
because I did try to look him up on Wikipedia, but because that's as far as I was willing to go, but there was no page.
Because that's our only source of information on race degrees, by the way. It's Wikipedia.
No,
don't look at anything else.
Wikipedia is great.
It's a good baseline of information. But then you dive deeper and you find. I've also found I've seen some facts about artists on Wikipedia, and then I've seen them talk about it, and it's like not exactly right. So a little factoid out there for people for check your sources and go look around at a few different things, because
I think
there's many sides.
That's why like teachers in school don't want you to cite Wikipedia on everything for all your scientific papers and stuff, but I would say it's a great place to start or to get ideas of what you should research.
I didn't have Wikipedia when I was in school,
Oh, you're back in the olden days before the internet.
Was Wikipedia coming up when you were in school? Is the thing?
I know Wikipedia to be. It feels like something that's always been in my life. That's always been around.
Well, it's been around for a long time, actually, though. Late 90s, when the internet first came about.
Which is when I was starting to mess around on the internet in school and stuff, I think. So,
let's play this track
off of Substantial.
Off of Substantial,
2004.
His first
Cologne label, Karaoke Cock,
and his first what is it? What's the label name?
Karaoke Cock, but it's
really
KALK.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I got too.
Hauschka's first release. I believe that was called Vielleicht off of Hauschka's first album called Substantial in 2004, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's not a lot of like what he has become known as the style of prepared piano in that track. He said like as he was like writing those piano pieces originally, he felt that he needed more sounds on top of it, kind of thing. And I think that's actually how it came about. I think the prepared piano idea came after writing the piano pieces, and he said that he felt like he needed more sounds on top of it, but he didn't want to have a singer or traditional percussion or drums. He wanted to see what else he could do. So he like dove into some like library packs and found like restaurant sound noises, which you can hear in that, like some cups and plates clinking in the background and people talking and stuff like that. And so I think this was like the beginnings of him starting to sort of realize like, you know, what he could create, you know.
Yeah, like I don't want to start a whole band, but how can I be more expressive while still only playing the piano?
Yeah.
And then that opened up this whole world of, you know, it's like a Pandora's box of sounds.
Yeah.
Like literally kind of like making his own, the piano is a box of gadgets and feathers and leather and ping pong balls, whatever you might want to use. But yeah, the restaurant sounds cool. Just another way to give the piano piece that he's playing more context. And, you know, it sounds like it's live.
Yeah.
And that kind of adds a different energy to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that was the kind of, like you said, the beginning, and he got the spark and is like, let's do more of this.
Yeah. And so he didn't know what the notion of prepared piano was until he started putting things in the strings. And then somehow like he found that this was already a thing that had been done for like a really long time.
But he'd only found that out after he started doing it on his own.
Yeah, he like discovered this technique himself. And then I was like, I wonder if anyone else has been doing that. And it was like, oh yeah,
it's a thing.
It's a thing. And apparently there's this guy called John Cage who did it, and back in like the late 40s. And this guy John Cage was constantly cited another guy called Henry Cowell, who was like a traditional composer. He's done a lot of like, you know, traditional things. But this guy used to also like scrape the strings as he was playing, sort of thing. So, you know, this guy went from scraping strings to John Cage putting things in the strings to Hauschka doing that by himself, and then realizing there are other people out there that are doing it. And I want to play this crazy track because this is insane, because this came from 1948 from John Cage and a collaboration he did with a guy called Hiroshi Yokoyama.
Nice.
And this is 1948, and this is insane. Do you think this came out yesterday? like questioning my research right now.
What do you mean?
Because it said 1948 on Spotify here, but that recording sounds a little bit nice, and if you click through to Hiroshi Yokiyama, not only did it invent Bitcoin, but no, I'm just joking. But he's a super young dude, so I think that what I just played was like a reinterpretation of like a John Cage composition that was done in 1948 and reinterpreted by Hiroshi Yokiyama. And Spotify, update your dates, because I don't think 1948 is correct on that. If that is, I'm blown away, but I don't think that is.
What were we listening to? Was that a piano, or it sounded like bells or pots, pans type sounds? What was?
There are pots and pans, but a lot of it was objects in piano strings.
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
To illustrate the idea that you can do that, and what are all the types of sounds you can create out of.
Yeah, I mean, I only heard a few piano keys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that sounded like a normal piano.
Yeah.
So I mean, real interesting to listen to the rhythms.
Yeah.
That was going on in there.
Yeah, exactly.
The kind of the rhythmic change ups.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting track for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to hear. Is there any way we can get that 1948 version? I mean, that's got to be out there somewhere?
I found that by going to John Cage's Spotify page and rewinding all the way back in time to the very bottom of his album discography. And it said 1948.
Dang, Spotify's been around since 1948?
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously you do these things. Let's see what else they have here. I'm just a little clip. We might cut this out. Yeah, there's I don't know. There's some fact checking that needs to go around the John Cage's Spotify page, I think, because it's not very clear on what's going on. But he was definitely, John Cage was like, been around for a very long time. It's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
all the way up until like the early 2000s. So,
but anyway, I mean, back to our narrative story.
Yeah, exactly.
Because this is thank you all for listening. Hopefully no one's tuning out, because this is not easy listening music that we're
That's why I said it's
showcasing.
like maybe another Actress episode, because
And
it's
it
not
is.
easily listened. I mean, some of it is easy.
I want to see all the different dynamics that you can do with music. Not just 4 on the floor pop. So I mean, it's super crazy to think about what was going. It wasn't just like Motown in the 50s.
No,
like people were doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
So that's a cool perspective to have.
Yeah,
to know
yeah.
that there's still weird people back in the day.
Yeah.
Doing weird things that were not poppy.
That's the thing. We think. I brought it up on another episode, but we think live looping is a new thing. But I saw this old black and white video of Les Paul in the 1950s doing live looping on a TV show.
Really?
With tape machines. And, Les Paul, his name went on to be used for the guitars and stuff, but he was a real guy. I didn't even know that when I saw the video. And, there's this old clip of him with this singer, Mary something, and he's doing all these, like, guitar things, and he's looping them up live, and then she's singing all these melodies and looping them up live. And it's this whole thing that was done like in the 50s, and now we take that technology for granted. But he perfected a system for doing it then, and
That's wild.
And also, I think Pink Floyd as well, like messed around with stuff like that in the studio when they're coming up with some of their seminal albums, and like creating little loops of textures on tape machines and then playing them through to record onto another tape machine to go into like the what the band was playing and stuff like that. You know, all of these crazy things. It's like
the stuff that you see, like, you know, Ed Sheeran doing today when he's up on stage by himself with a pedal board.
Right.
These people were doing this 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It just was a little bit more equipment or different equipment. I mean, yeah, 'cause I think people were sampling and stuff. I think there's a record that's credited as being like the first fully sampled record. I don't think there's vocals on it maybe, but it's like fully sampled on vinyl, like pre-1950s or in the 1950s.
Really?
Yeah. So
Check
like,
that out.
it's just crazy to think of this stuff going on at the same time as, you know, Buddy Holly.
Right. Exactly, yeah.
Pop stuff,
Yeah.
you know, whoever was playing music back in the day. So this is all going on at the same time.
And that's the
Cool
thing,
context.
Hauschka didn't even know about this. When he started like his first forays into messing around with this stuff on the piano, he didn't even know about this, and then he was surprised as well that it had been...
It's funny how he kind of found it by accident.
Yeah.
Kind of discovered it on his own.
Right, yeah.
And then found out that he was not the one that discovered it.
I mean, it's kind of sacrilegious, don't you think? Like, if you're like... I think very few classically trained musicians will be like, let me fuck with the instrument. Let me open up the hood and start monkeying with the
Take everything
mechanics.
I've learned and not do that.
But, you know, it creates new worlds when you do that.
Right.
And that's what Hauschka has discovered. And it's something that he's continues to experiment with, because he said that... he said as soon as he discovered this thing, he was like on a mad hunt for all kinds of random objects to see what kind of sounds it would create, you know, if he put them in there. And you mentioned earlier the ping pong ball thing. And he literally like puts these loose ping pong balls in the strings, and you know, he's just playing the piano, and it's creating these crazy sounds. And one thing he realized when he was doing that is that the harder he hit the notes, like they would actually pop up and like fall out of the piano kind of thing.
Right.
And he didn't necessarily want that to happen. So he decided like, I'll maybe weight them down by putting some string on them. That didn't really work out kind of thing. And then he decided to just leave them loose in there, but instead realized that he needs to play lighter kind of thing.
Right.
Which led him to think about like, now he said there's like physical events that are happening that are driving the music.
Right.
Versus him just purely thinking about tonality and what he's playing kind of thing. He's also reacting to what's happening inside the piano.
And
like,
he's kind of creating this little world with his piano in his hands and these objects on the strings. And it's actually like an interaction.
Yeah.
Like based on the sounds that he's creating with his hands, and he's watching the balls and he's kind of reacting to it and kind of changing what he's playing based on that. So like actively being inspired as it's happening live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, just amazing stuff. Really cool.
Yeah. And so, and also when he was doing that, he said he realized that he could create, like, if he wanted them to like bounce to like the other side of the piano, he would play a certain way and all that.
Yeah.
That shit is nuts. Like, that is kind of like, who else is doing that? That is crazy. Like, you know,
this is so fun, so interactive, and just what an adventure.
Yeah.
And I think that's fun when music is often an adventure of exploration.
Yeah.
And he just went fully into that world.
So,
and then we're on his second album.
Well, so his second album, and he called it The Prepared Piano.
And that's kind of where he fully dipped in?
That's where he fully dipped in, like on every track with this approach, and I have a track if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, let's do it. I think this is certainly one to play.
This is called Traffic, and I think it's a good title for this composition. that's a driving track, but not in the way that I normally say driving track on Rooster Grooves.
No, I love that song though. That one's really good. I like that energy. It has the kind of positive, hopeful, getting somewhere energy.
Yeah. It's got all that in it. And so that was that. That was off of the Prepared Piano, his second album. He called it Straight Out. He discovered this technique, and it was like, it's not substantial.
Check this out.
Check this out.
That was 2005.
Yeah, and he's just like gone on from there, like releasing album after album. He's done some sort of experiments along the way with different approaches of things. I don't want to talk about it just yet because it's a little bit further down his discography, but the album that I discovered him on was called Ferndorf, which came out in 2008. And there's this one track that I haven't heard all of his stuff, but I have heard that was like the one that really hit me, and I was like, it sounds, it could be from any artist. I feel like not. Like when you hear this track, I don't think you would necessarily think it's a classical pianist. You think it was like maybe like a lo-fi melodic track on someone else's like album that's doing something a little bit more down tempo or whatever kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know we're playing a lot of music on this episode, but there's a lot of.
No, I mean this is interesting. We want to hear it. We want to give everyone some context because it's not something that you hear every day. Certainly.
No. So can I play this track?
Please.
All right. Freibad.
What is this off of?
This is off of his Ferndorf album in 2008.
Right on.
It's got a really cool album cover as well. It's kind of like Art Deco sort of illustration that you might see out of that period. So when I heard this track and I saw that album cover, I thought the artist would be something completely different. But
it does look kind of almost movie poster.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I got. I don't know any. It looks cool. There's just some patterns.
Yeah, it's Art Deco.
The colors.
It's like there's like an illustration of a sun in the background with buildings in the foreground.
Is that Ferndorf, the city, his little town?
Maybe, yeah, because you said it was named after his town, right? Ferndorf, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a person sitting on the name of the album cover, looking in the distance,
looking at the sun
town.
rising or setting.
Yeah.
I'm thinking rising.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's more hopeful beginning energy.
Instead of sun down, sun up.
Either way, it's good.
So that was the track that got me hooked on Hauschka. Because I hadn't heard anything like that before when I first heard it. And I was like, that's interesting. And then, get to the end of the track and it's all that. And I was like, okay.
Okay. I see.
I was like, but you could hear Adele singing over it at the beginning or something like that. Or it could go one of a million different directions sort of thing. So,
really cool motifs in there.
Yeah.
Really cool rhythm.
Yeah.
It's just really beautiful. Yeah. These songs have really good energy to them. Yeah. It's like I want to stand up and just, run on top of a mountain or something.
Yeah. Which is interesting. So he's been doing that consistently throughout all of his albums, different ways. There's so much out there to explore. Like I said,
for sure,
19 EPs and albums combined. I didn't count the EPs versus albums, but but there's a lot of material out there.
Right.
And
yeah. So we're that came out in 2008, the Ferndorf.
Yeah.
And then Foreign Landscapes came out after that. Was that right?
Yeah.
I believe. I'm trying to look at. Oh, my bad. I don't know. Let me just put up the.
I don't think we have to go through his whole discography because there's some film scores that are in there as well.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Okay. Because this is a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, during this time, 2010 to 2014, he started working on some film scores. Is that right?
Yeah.
He just started working with a lot of different people using these techniques and not using them, but just either or, just utilizing his skills in general.
Yeah.
And just getting a lot of work done, making a lot of beautiful music with a lot of beautiful people.
Yeah.
Just being very prolific and very consistent.
Yeah.
He released Salon des Amateurs, Silfra, some different film scores. Where do we go from here? He's just banging the stuff out up until now.
I think one of the film scores that he cites as a pivotal moment in his film scoring career is for a movie called Lion, which I have not seen. Sounds interesting.
The movie's called Lion?
Yeah. And it was he co-composed that with a guy called Dustin O'Halloran. And the director had been aware of both of them and basically asked them both to collaborate on the soundtrack for this movie. And so, I think at that point in time, Hauschka, aka Volker, hadn't really had much experience in composing for film before, kind of thing. So he said that they were, because the way it works in films is I think with the director and all that, is you watch the entire film and then you figure out where the music cues are going to be in the film.
Yeah.
For different moments. And so they would literally bring up those moments in the film on the screen in the studio, and they would be composing to that moment in the film, kind of thing. And so he said there'll be different things where he said they played live to the scene in the film to record it, and then they get a note back from the director that'd be like, this is good, but I think the tempo's too high here at this moment, it should calm down in the scene, sort of thing. And he said because they weren't really he said they couldn't really cut it up because it was one piece that had been scored for that moment, that when they got that feedback, they had to go back in and recompose that moment in the film based on...
Just redo it, basically.
Yeah, and they said they re-rehearse it and play along until they feel like they got something, and then they re-record it live to that moment in the film, kind of thing. And he said since then, that was a great learning experience for him because, he said, sometimes, he used to do that with a click track going on.
Right.
And he said in later years, he's removed the click track from the recording process because of the tempo thing seems to be a recurring sort of feedback from the filmmakers, kind of thing.
Right.
And he said there are multiple moments even within just one short scene where you want to pull back and push in and pull back and push in.
Yeah, there's no tempo defining the moments of a movie or a film.
Yeah, so he said it's more about feel and emotion, which is how good film scoring should be to complement film scenes, I think, is to...
Yeah, it makes so much more sense.
Exactly, yeah. So, and, and he's gone on and he's done some big soundtracks since then, Charlize Theron movie I watched recently on Netflix.
She's a Charlie's Angel, yeah?
Was she in a
I don't know.
Charlie's Angel? I don't know.
I know. I don't know. Forget.
But yeah, no, like yeah, it's
But the stuff he's worked on, like Lion, is Oscar nominated.
yeah, he got
know,
nominated
Academy
for that, yeah.
Academy Awards nominated, Golden Globes nominated. So
Yeah.
like this is like, good work.
Yeah.
That's critically acclaimed.
Yeah.
Whether he won the award or not.
Yeah.
He composed a score for the film Adrift,
Yeah.
which is like the story of a sailor stranded at sea. What else we got?
The Old Guard was the movie I watched recently. It came out in 2020 on Netflix.
And he scored that?
He scored that.
And you watched
by
that?
himself. I did watch that film, yeah. I didn't. I think I might have realized. I think I saw his name in the credits, and when I was watching the movie, and I was like, "Oh,
What? I know that guy.
Hauschka?
My boy Hauschka?
My boy Hauschka. I saw him play live." But it's not like the film is the film. It's not the best film in the world, but it's an interesting film.
Right.
But the music didn't get in the way at all of what that film was about. It was like, I wasn't sitting there thinking like, where's the Hauschka of the Free Bad album that I heard? I didn't think that at all. He did a really good job. He's really good at just addressing the moment correctly, kind of thing. And that's something else he said as well about scoring for film. He's like, because he's had this career of doing everything from writing songs to producing to doing like hip hop stuff and doing like more song orientated things, that he said that when he is asked to do a soundtrack, he knows he can do it all. If there's a moment where it needs more of like a song, traditional song thing here, he can do that.
Yeah.
Like, but if it's like something that's like needs to be more orchestral, he can like score the strings and have an orchestra do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how well rounded he is as a composer.
Yeah.
Going like I didn't even know I didn't realize there were that much hip hop, that first group, God's Favorite Dog.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, going from that to this weird stuff with the piano and the different sounds to film scores.
Yeah.
Like he's like just this arsenal of knowledge and experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and he's putting it to good use. He has like at least one release every single year.
Yeah.
Since he started releasing stuff.
Prolific.
Yeah.
And and like he knows when he does Hauschka stuff, he can just be free and he can just do, because there are constraints with doing film soundtracks. Good constraints, because you're supposed to be serving the storyline, not trying to fucking write whatever you want to write.
Yeah, not being the shining star of the movie as the composer.
Yeah, you want to complement or enhance certain moments.
The mood and the vibe of what's going on in the film.
Which is a very, it's a tough trick as a trick or method or,
skill.
Skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, to like really do. And, but I think it suits him well, not just because he's a classical musician, but also because of the, like just even going back to the ping pong story again, like, he was having to react to the events of the objects that are happening in his piano, which isn't too dissimilar to reacting to the events of what a film scene that's happening on screen in front of you, kind of thing. Like,
100%.
Yeah.
Or with a band.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Playing live.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
riffing off of each other. What are you doing? I'm going to do this now.
Yeah.
Switch it up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really cool.
And I think, the other cool thing to say about Hauschka in terms of musicians out there is he created a sound library for Spitfire Audio.
Yeah, watch the interview on Spitfire Audio on YouTube.
Yeah. And Spitfire Audio, if people don't know, is a great sound library out there. They do a lot of orchestral sounds, all kinds of sounds and stuff like that that producers and musicians can use, kind of thing. And
yeah, when I was listening to him speak about making his own library, I wasn't sure what kind of sounds he was doing. Like, are these individual like sounds like a hit, like one note,
right?
Or is it like a chord? Is like a whole chord and then that's recorded, or like how could you describe that?
So I know someone that bought it and got it, and there's a mixture of sounds in there, but
like, are they piano sounds?
if you think about the concept of prepared piano, right, which
Yeah.
is like hitting a string and then having a ping pong ball do something crazy in there or something else, that's what he was capturing, because I think at this point there aren't too many people that are doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
It's a very unique sound, and he's also honed his own approaches to doing that type of prepared piano sound. So he has a unique sound. So I think the idea, they call it the Hauschka toolkit, is to be able to bring him into your compositions, sort of thing, in a way. He said he had like a couple of motivations for doing it. One was that he feels that, like, if you find something cool, you don't need to protect your discoveries. You should just share them, sort of thing.
Yeah, I found that interesting too, because I think a lot of artists come across that when they find something new or special or unique, and you kind of want to, that's my idea. This is what makes me unique.
No one else can do
special.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if I give away my secrets, then what's going to be special about me?
Right, yeah.
But I don't know, the universe works in a kind of a backwards way like that, and giving is receiving. And if you help share things, you're still going to get the benefit from it.
It's definitely, and I'll bring it back to the Jordan Mackay thing. I've talked about him on the last episode.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Because I've been binge watching his tutorial videos. But he said the same, Jordan Mackay said the same thing in about episode 3 or something of his tutorial series. He answered a question that someone had, and the question was posed to him that, like, don't you feel that you shouldn't be sharing, like, your techniques and tips and secrets, kind of thing? And the way Jordan Mackay answered this, and I think it's like probably how Hauschka thinks as well, is that you know, the tips and the tricks are one thing, and that's good, and everyone should be able to do that. But the concept of your ear and what you're going to create and how you're going to create it is unique to everyone, which is true. You know, like I made this track recently based on Jordan Mackay techniques, and it didn't sound like him. It sounded like what my ear was drawn to. You know, I'm picking certain sounds based on my ear. I'm using his techniques maybe to morph them, but ultimately I'm creating something that is not something he would create. You know,
right? And I think it's almost like grossly obvious if you think about it. Like, if you want to create a song, you're not gonna invent a guitar, right, or a brand new instrument. Most people, almost like 99.9% of all these musicians, don't invent an instrument in order to get into music. Like, I use a guitar. I didn't invent the guitar, though. Yeah, exactly. If what would I do if I just was like, I'm so unique, I only use things that I create myself? I mean, you can do that. That's great. And I'm sure you'd have an adventure of your life. To do that, and that you can come up with some cool stuff. But you know, people aren't going out and inventing the drums and inventing guitars again. Like, we're all using the same stuff. And it's not too dissimilar from using the same sounds. In a different and unique way.
And I think, like, it's like, it's different and unique. I mean, like, you can, I'll take it back to a film analogy as well. Another way of saying what you were saying, but from someone else in the film world, Paul Thomas Anderson, who directed Boogie Nights. He said that he was heavily influenced by some other film director who I can't remember his specific name right now. But, and he said a lot of the shots that he did in Boogie Nights were completely stolen and ripped off from this director's movies, kind of thing. Like, he just like did it, like copied it, kind of thing. And this is what he believed. And then he ended up like at some awards ceremony, and he met this director. He was like an idol of his, and he like told him how much he loved his work and that. And he also told him that he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I totally ripped you off, like in these scenes in Boogie Nights and that. And this director was like, yeah, I saw your movie, it was good. It was nothing like what I do. Like, he did not recognize or see.
The first guy was like, I stole from you. Like, I'm admitting to it. My bad.
Yeah, and the other guy was like, no, you didn't. Like, I didn't see that. And that was like, when I read that, and I think Paul Thomas Anderson, when he heard that as well in a filmmaking sense, he was like, oh, yeah, there's a difference between everyone, like, in how you see something and how you hear something. It's like, you think you're copying something, but you're not. You're still you, and you're still putting your own spin on it, which makes it different, you know. And like, there's that famous quote, right? Like, great artists,
a good artist copy, great artists steal.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and which reminds me of something else I did not say on the Unknown Mortal Coil Unknown Mortal Orchestra episode. He was talking about this as well. He said that there's like a big cancel culture happen. He didn't say cancel culture, but we know what cancel culture is around certain artists that do a bad thing, and now we're all supposed to we're supposed to ignore everything they created, like these artists that created these movies, like Woody Allen and whatever and stuff like that, and inspired a bunch of people, and they needed this bad shit that we know about, and it's like, oh, do we disregard everything he created? Like Ruben from Unknown Mortal Orchestra said, the best thing you can do in that is to steal from them and to pillage it and to take from it and then to react to it in your art.
That is a great idea.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah. I mean, that didn't come up in a conversation about him, but it's coming up now. So it's like,
let's talk about it now. That's very true, though.
Yeah.
All the more reason to use, that influence.
Yeah.
In a new way.
Yeah, it's a reaction, right? It's like, yeah. I mean, it's a half separating the art from the person. All that's a whole big conversation as well. I think if the art is created, it stands by itself, and it doesn't. It's not really connected to the person anymore.
I mean, it's like Jesus said, let the one without sin be the first to throw the stone at somebody, to kill him. I don't know if you know that reference. I think some people, there's a bunch of people gathered around throwing stones at this person who did a bad thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, whoever is without sin, you can throw the first rock.
Right.
And then no one can throw because everyone's done something bad.
Right.
So if you look at it like that, like everyone's done bad things. Should we all be canceled? Yeah. Some people just hide bad things more than other people is all it is.
Yeah.
Even if it's just jaywalking, we've all done something that's illegal probably.
But then you get into is that bad or is that not bad? I don't know.
Where's the line?
There are certain things that are definitely bad, but
For sure.
But yeah.
I don't know. But I mean there's some subjectivity in there.
Yeah. But to loop it back to Hauschka and his sound library, that was one motivation. Don't if you find your discovery, don't protect it. Kind of thing. The other thing he said is, two other things. One thing he said, it was kind of for his own needs, like when he's on the road touring and stuff like that, and he wants to be able to compose, and all he has is his laptop and his MIDI keyboard. He wants to have access to the sounds that he would normally use.
So he's using his own library for himself.
Yeah, he said he even considered making his own library just for himself, so he could compose on the road, kind of thing. So why not get paid for it as well in the process?
Might as well.
He didn't say that, but I'm sure that's a notion.
A little, 100%.
And then I guess the third thing as well is he said the way he's used sound libraries in his own music is that he really likes it when he finds something that kind of saves him. Like he's struggling with a piece or something, and he goes through a library and finds a sound, and it sort of
ties it together,
rescues what he's working on, ties it together, or he said inspires him to do something different, or to move on, get unstuck, I guess is the thing to say there.
A little lubricant.
Yeah, exactly. And so he said that if there are composers out there that are working on something and they have his library, maybe they want to add a percussive element to something, but they don't want to use percussion, or, and so they can go to his library and find the key and then bring in that sound, and it adds that sort of percussive element without actually strictly using drums or anything like that to do that kind of thing. So it's interesting that he thought about the process of doing a library and how people might use it and that kind of thing, and it's available now to anyone that wants to go out there and use it. But yeah,
how much does that cost? What are we talking about here?
Let me bring it up right now. It is $299.
Okay, just curious because that sounds well within reason for the work that was put into that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a collection of his unique sounds, that he's gone through and done. And
did he record them specifically for the library and their new sounds, or did he use some of the ones that he used that were actually on his albums?
They were specifically recorded for the library.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're even new to him.
Yeah.
As far as being used on a track.
Yeah, I think he has some techniques like the ping pong thing and stuff like that.
Copyrighted.
copyrighted. there's a weird. This kind of like not freaked me out, but I was like, this is a little weird. Like he was talking about with this whole process, it's hard sometimes to like create like a sustained note, you know, because in the library you want to have like one long note, like a pad kind of thing, and like with a lot of his techniques, you can't really create that because it's just like a one thing that falls off.
Yeah, it's a percussive.
Yeah, and so he said one of the only things that does this is vibrator. And he picked out this little metal vibrator that he said he found in a men's restroom in an airport. And I'm like, dude, I hope you fucking washed that. But anyway, that's something.
What? Why would you? Whatever, man.
Exactly.
Artists. Artists.
But he said if you like put it on and you put it on one of the strings, it creates this long sustained note, which kind of sounds like a sitar.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he's got that in the library as well for so you can get that vibrator string sound in the.
Well, I mean, good for him though. I like the ingenuity.
Yeah.
The callback to old style.
Yeah.
You know, this was being done in the 40s apparently.
Yeah.
I learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, the experimentation and the adventure of it is what I'm down for.
Yeah, yeah.
That's super
Absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
That's basically all I got on our guy.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I talked a lot this episode. I feel like I've
No,
talked
if
a lot
anything, it
about-
was probably me not talking as much.
Oh,
I don't know, but I wasn't the expert on Hauschka. I was glad to be introduced. It was a pleasure learning about this guy. This was Jay's pick for the week, so a great eclectic pick.
Yeah, sort of off kilter from who we normally talk about.
We like to be off kilter.
So we'll play out of a track called "My Kid's Life on Mars." I haven't really listened to this album. It's from an album called "What If," but this is one of the ones where he was trying to be a little bit further experimental and try and do a nod to some of his inspirations relating to like hip hop and stuff like that.
Okay.
Which the only thing I can really gather from this album is it's Hauschka doing his thing, but he's got some like overdubs of like other percussive elements happening in there. I think, unless I'm completely wrong, he did this all in piano, but I hear some like kick drums and stuff like that happening in this, which I thought might have been sort of overdubbed or whatever, but we can spin it.
The only note I had was that he is performed by fast and accurate piano players.
Oh yeah.
So whatever that means.
Which I think might actually be the programmed pianos that play, because they said fast and accurate.
Yeah, so a machine?
Yeah, I think like, you know, those pianos that have the roll of paper in it.
Is that a player piano?
Yeah, that like plays the notes and all that. I think he might have like done all of this on that album.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So that's even another twist.
That's another twist. Interesting. If I'm correct, I'm assuming. And you know what they say when you assume?
What?
Make an arse out of you and me.
Okay.
That's an oldie and a goodie.
Nice. Classic. Hey, you guys can steal that one from Jay. Use that.
Dad jokes.
But if you guys know anything more about What If off this album, about these player pianos, any other good fun facts, let us know. You can hit us up at our email.
rootstogrooves@signalradio.com, SIGNL radio.com, or drop a YouTube comment. And we'll catch you next time.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We love you.
Roots to Grooves is a production of Signl Radio. For more music and independent culture, visit signalradio.com. That's signl radio.com.